Okay, so you ready to dive deep into the world of hazardous materials inspectors?
Absolutely. It's a field with so much more to it than meets the eye.
Right. I mean, we all see those signs like danger, hazardous materials, but someone's got to make sure those warnings aren't just for show.
Exactly. And that's where these inspectors come in.
And for our deep dive today, we've got a ton of intel from RoleCatcher to guide us.
Their career guide is a goldmine of information. They even have insights into their AI-powered job platform.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. It's seriously cool stuff. But first, for someone who's like, okay, hazardous materials inspector, what's that even mean on a day-to-day basis?
Well, think about it. You've got chemical plants, oil refineries, construction sites.
Right, those signs are everywhere.
Exactly. These inspectors are everywhere those materials are, ensuring safety and compliance.
So it's not just like sitting at a desk reading regulations all day.
Not at all. It's a dynamic field that requires both on-site investigation and a deep understanding of the science behind hazardous materials.
Okay, so for our listener who's now thinking, this actually sounds super interesting, but how do I even become qualified for a job like that? RoleCatcher gave us a breakdown, right?
They did. A strong background in environmental science, chemistry, or occupational health and safety is a great foundation.
Because you need to understand not just the regulations, but the actual science behind how these materials behave.
Precisely. It's about knowing the risks, the reactions, the potential impact on both people and the environment.
So you're not just enforcing rules, you're like a hazmat scientist.
Duckles? In a way, yes. And speaking of qualifications, they also highlighted the importance of certifications, specifically the Certified Hazardous Materials Manager, or CHMM.
Right, that's like having a big flashing sign that says, I know my stuff, to potential employers.
Exactly. It shows a commitment to professional development and a deep understanding of hazardous materials management.
And speaking of finding jobs, this is where I thought RoleCatcher's platform was super cool. AI-powered job matching for hazardous materials inspectors.
Yeah.
That's next level.
It is remarkable how technology is changing the job search process.
Right. Imagine you create a profile, and their system connects you with employers who are specifically looking for your expertise. It's like having a personal headhunter in your pocket.
It really is a game changer, and it highlights how important it is to clearly articulate your skills and experience in this field.
Okay, so let's say you've aced the application process, you've got the skills, you've got the experience, and now you've landed yourself an interview. RoleCatcher actually provided some sample interview questions, and let me tell you, some of them were intense.
Oh, absolutely. They're designed to really see how you think on your feet and handle high-pressure situations.
Right, like describe a time you had to respond to an emergency involving hazardous materials. That's not your typical tell me about your strengths and weaknesses kind of
No,
question.
definitely not. It's about showcasing your experience, your problem-solving skills, and your ability to stay calm under pressure.
Which, let's be real, is crucial in a field where the stakes can be incredibly high.
Absolutely. You're dealing with materials that have the potential to cause serious harm, so being able to make quick, informed decisions is essential.
So it's clear that this is not a career for the faint of heart.
No, it's definitely not. It takes a special kind of person to handle the responsibility and the pressure that comes with being a hazardous materials inspector.
But it's also a career that's incredibly rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. You're playing a critical role in protecting public health, safety, and the environment. It's a career where you can truly make a difference. It's a career path with a real impact, that's for sure. And one thing that really stood out in RoleCatcher's research was the sheer variety of work environments.
Oh yeah, it's not just labs and factories, right?
Right. They highlighted everything from construction sites to waste disposal facilities, even transportation and logistics.
Oh right, I remember that now.
Yep.
Because it's not like hazardous materials just stay put once they're packaged up, right?
Exactly. Think about it. Tankers on the highway, freight trains, cargo ships.
Hmm.
Those materials are constantly on the move.
So you could have inspectors working on a dock, inspecting shipping containers.
Absolutely. And each mode of transport comes with its own unique set of regulations and potential risks.
Wow, that's way more dynamic than I initially pictured. Okay, so you need to be adaptable, comfortable in a variety of settings.
And a quick study, because regulations can change rapidly.
Which brings us back to that whole continuous learning thing, right? What did RoleCatcher say about staying up to date in such a fast-paced field?
Professional organizations are key. They highlighted groups like the National Environmental Health Association, or NEA, which offer continuing education courses, conferences, that kind of thing.
So it's about tapping into those networks, those communities of practice.
Exactly, because regulations change, new materials emerge. It's an ongoing process.
What about those moments when you're on site, maybe you encounter a chemical you're not familiar with, and you need information fast? What then?
And that's where those hazmat manuals come in. Those thick binders full of information.
Oh, right, like the hazmat equivalent of a doctor's medical encyclopedia.
Exactly. One inspector they interviewed called it their hazmat Bible. It's got everything.
Yeah.
Detailed information on thousands of substances, the risks, emergency procedures.
So you're telling me these inspectors need to have this incredible depth of knowledge and be able to access it on the fly?
Absolutely. It's a field that really requires both theoretical knowledge and the ability to apply it in real-world, often high-pressure situations.
And that brings us back to that emergency response scenario you mentioned earlier, the inspector who found the hidden chemical leak.
Right, because that wasn't just about following a checklist. It was about problem-solving under pressure.
So walk us through that. What kind of thought process goes into a situation like that?
Well, according to RoleCatcher, the inspector first had to think about how to even identify the source of the leak, which was hidden.
Yeah.
Then they had to consider things like air circulation, potential ignition sources.
Oh, wow. So many variables.
Exactly. And all while coordinating with the facility's emergency response team and potentially needing to evacuate the area.
It's like a high-stakes game of chess where every move could have serious consequences.
Precisely. And in that scenario, the inspector's quick thinking and decisive action really prevented what could have been a disastrous situation.
It's incredible the impact they can have. So we've talked about the high-pressure scenarios, but what about the day-to-day challenges? Did RoleCatcher get into that at all?
They did. And one thing that came up repeatedly was the challenge of dealing with people who don't prioritize safety.
Oh, I can imagine. Like companies cutting corners to save money.
Exactly. Or managers pushing back against regulations, or even employees who've just become complacent.
So you need that backbone, that willingness to stand your ground when you know something isn't right.
You absolutely do. But it's not always about being confrontational. RoleCatcher also emphasized the importance of communication and diplomacy.
Right, because you're often interacting with people who might not be hazmat experts.
Precisely. So being able to explain complex regulations in a way that's understandable and being able to de-escalate potentially tense situations, those are invaluable skills.
So it's a balance, right? You need that technical expertise, but also those people skills.
Absolutely. And increasingly, you need a certain level of tech savviness as well.
Oh, right. Because
Okay.
it's not all clipboards and hazmat suits anymore, is it? What did RoleCatcher say about the role of technology in this field?
They talked about how drones are becoming increasingly common for inspections, especially in those hard-to-reach or high-risk areas.
Drones! That's amazing. So you could be, like, piloting a drone through a chemical plant.
Exactly. They can get visual inspections, collect air samples.
Yeah.
It's a game changer for safety and efficiency.
It sounds like the future of hazmat inspecting is going to be increasingly high-tech.
It's an exciting time to be in the field, that's for sure. There's a constant need to adapt and learn new technologies.
It's amazing how technology is changing so many fields, even ones that seem so hands-on. But speaking of the human element, RoleCatcher mentioned that this job, it's not just about technical skills, it can be emotionally demanding too, right?
Absolutely. You're dealing with situations that can have a real impact on people's lives, on communities, on the environment. They shared a story about an inspector who responded to a chemical spill. And even though it wasn't a major disaster, just seeing the fear in the eyes of the local residents, that really stuck with them.
Wow, that's got to be tough, being able to stay level-headed in those moments when people are understandably freaking out.
It's a delicate balance. You need to be empathetic and reassuring, but also decisive and in control of the situation.
Like a hazmat whisperer, calming both the danger and the people involved.
Chuckles, I like that. But seriously, emotional intelligence is crucial in this field. You're often interacting with people who are stressed, scared, maybe even angry, and being able to navigate those emotions effectively is essential.
So for a listener who's thinking, okay, this all sounds incredibly important and challenging, maybe a little intimidating, where do I even begin to explore this as a career path?
RoleCatcher had a great suggestion, and it's so simple but effective. Shadowing. Reach out to local inspectors, environmental agencies, even manufacturing plants that handle hazardous materials. Seeing the work firsthand is invaluable.
So get out there, get some real-world experience, talk to the people in the trenches. What about the bigger picture, though? What does the future of hazardous materials inspection look like? Any predictions from RoleCatcher's research?
They highlighted a trend that's only going to become more important: specialization.
Specialization,
Mm.
like you're the go-to person for, say, radioactive waste or something super specific.
Exactly. Think about it. As technology advances, we're dealing with increasingly complex materials, things like nanomaterials, biohazards. The need for inspectors with hyper-specialized knowledge is only going to increase.
It's like a career path with built-in niche opportunities. Instead of just being a hazmat inspector, you're a radioactive waste ninja or a biohazard guru.
Suckles. That's a
Yeah.
great way to put it. And it leads perfectly into our final thought for our listeners today. As technology keeps evolving and we encounter new materials with new challenges, what role will you play in shaping the future of hazardous materials management? It's a field ripe with opportunity for those who are up for the challenge.
That's a great question to ponder. A huge thank you to RoleCatcher for giving us so much incredible info for this deep dive.
It was fascinating.
And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us as always. It's been an eye-opening exploration of a career path that's absolutely vital and way more interesting than we even realized. Until next time, keep exploring.
And stay curious.